the premise is that you're a group of youth want to set up a committee of some sort to discuss politics, and they get shut down, right?
The importance of political engagement in light of sort of Islamophobia and
Yeah.
addressing that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing, but this is something that I've learned from my circle, being involved in planning events such as, a lot of centers will shut you down for anything political because they will lose their charity status.
Yes.
Because they're not supposed to be endorsing anything politically. Where we have found it to be successful, and I include myself in this inclusive it was at universities. And this is something that a lot of our youth don't understand. Universities set aside budgets for student unions, and you can actually use that money to pay your speakers or bring food, to invite people, whatever it is that you want to do. You can actually form those, and over there you can discuss anything that you want to really discuss. And you also have access to philosophers and professors on site who you can actually invite to speak if you don't have access to any of the speakers coming in. I do think it's very, very important that we discuss politics. Maybe not everyone would agree with me on this. It could be just my opinion, but I've always maintained that our religion is our politics, and our politics should also be our religion, in the sense that Islam is a completely inclusive religion. Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi al Munkar can serve as the foundation for any political movement. Our political movement our slogan should be Amr bil Ma'ruf, Nahi al Munkar. We oppose all injustice, and we call for every opportunity to have peaceful dialogue, inshallah. So I think that's my piece on that.
That's great, thank you.
So I'm actually interested to hear your opinion on this, because you kind of brought it up, and then we can go from there. So I really just wanted to hear your opinion on the hypothetical, what you might think is the...
Sure. I guess how I sort of thought about this is that the audience would respond, so I don't actually have a response.
Oh,
but
sorry.
If I were to wing it, I would say that one of the strategies that we sort of approached it in our mosque in Vancouver is that we sort of embedded the idea of political engagement in a larger strategy of PR, generally PR for the mosque. So having a PR strategy and having the idea of how to address Islamophobia or anti-Muslim rhetoric embedded in that. So not necessarily taking it from the angle of, hey, we need to be politically engaged because that's going to offset any mosque because they all have charity status, you're right. But to really say that, how do we sort of spin this image? How do we address this image? Similar to what other groups have done. For example, we have Israeli groups in New York, with the history that they have. We're going through a very similar history, as Sayyid Ghazwini touched upon today. So I think sort of approaching it from that angle, from a safe angle, but one that's not really shy to address the major issues. We are having issues, and our mosques are coming under attack, and we have, women with hijab that are constantly getting harassed because of similar topics that we've talked about already. So I think without skirting the issue, we do need to talk about it, and I think a strategy would be to embed it in a greater sort of plan.
Can I just add to that? So very quickly, I think there is of course the nonprofit status issue. That's something that always does have to be considered. However, I think it's very important, very much along the lines of what we've heard, in that centers need to be the center of empowerment. Young people, I practically grew up in the mosque that my parents were so involved in. I was there on such a regular basis, and much of my empowerment, much of what makes me who I am today is the upbringing that my parents provided to me through the center. And so while there are these issues around the nonprofit status, there are definitely ways of just empowering young people in every facet of their life, and civic engagement is such an important facet of their life. So I just wanted to add that, in that I think there are definitely ways to have these difficult discussions in the center. I'm a very large advocate of having them in the center. And I think we have a comment actually.
Assalamu alaikum. Just going along with this, I think one of the big misnomers that we continuously hear is that you can't do this in the center. And I think that narrative we really have to kind of address, and I think we need to pinpoint what we can't do in the center, because everything else we can. Really, when it comes to, and there are various organizations like Muslim Advocates and MPAC and CARE and other organizations who really go into mosques to clarify this aspect. But really, when it comes to endorsing or kind of picking a party line, that's where we're prohibited, or raising funds for a candidate. I think what the Muslim community and everybody here is probably on the same page about is we're talking about getting our people out, or we're just talking about educating them on the issues. I don't think anybody here is really so interested in holding fundraisers or anything like that probably comes later down the road. But I think this fear of our nonprofit status and all these other kind of things, I think that narrative we really have to kind of educate our community leaders and ourselves on really that's not in jeopardy. And worst case scenario, if it is in jeopardy, all that really happens is people's deductions. They can't deduct their donations, really. So I think we're acting as if this nonprofit status is as holy as the Quran in terms of how much that really means to us. But I think on the flip side, if we look at how important it is for our communities and our youngsters to be engaged, I think if we do like a risk-benefit analysis, I think there's a significantly higher benefit in us engaging in this as opposed to not. That's just a few comments.
And one quick follow-up. If there are any board members of any centers in the audience who have questions about this, about how to navigate the nonprofit status and civic engagement, that's what UMAA is here for. So please contact us and we can help you in sort of designing programs that keep you and your nonprofit status safe. So reach out to us. We can definitely be a resource.
I just wanted to add to what Azmat was saying. So recently in Michigan, Emerge, which is a Muslim advocacy group, has started their chapter. And what we've been trying to do is trying to get different centers together. So whether they're Sunni centers or Shia centers, to try to just build a grassroots movement of people who are civically engaged. And the first thing that seems to be one of the most important things is actually getting people to vote. And so what we've been trying to do is trying to get 3 or 4 different representatives from the different centers, whether it's in the Detroit area or Dearborn area and other parts of Michigan, to try to get people to do something called GOTV training. Now this topic came up. We had a very big meeting with many board members. About 10 different mosques were attending one meeting to do GOTV training, which is get out to vote. And the issue came up, which is how much can we actually do? And there were some community members who said, I want my centers to participate, but I'm fearing pushback specifically because we don't want to be, we don't want our 501c3 status to be taken away. And luckily, there was someone there who was from the mayor's office and someone who worked with GOTV to just clarify and say, you have a lot of leeway to work on civic engagement without getting your your charity status taken away. Basically, you can promote people to vote, you can register people to vote, you can gather data, you can even ask, if you're following up, who do you think you might be voting for, etc. Are you a decided or undecided voter? All of these things are fine. The issue then is, what Azmat brought up is, if you're actually promoting or having fundraisers. But to really have someone there to make the community feel safe, an expert who says, I know the rules about this, whether you're talking legally or strategically, this is just fine. And that was really reassuring for all of the board members who were at this specific meeting. And that's just a suggestion from my end. So
It's a really good point. Thank you.
No? I would like to look at this in a different perspective, actually, from different light. I think what I've heard, by and large, I agree with. But I think fundamentally we have a problem starting from the house, from the home, or from the upbringing of our youngsters. If I can have a raise of hands from the audience, how many are involved in any areas associated with politics or media? You can see, I mean, it's probably about 5%, 5 to 10% of the, or probably less, of the audience here, and perhaps by and large our communities. It's arguably a chronic problem across many different Muslim communities, and that is the perception associated with graduating with a politics degree or media or social sciences or these kind of areas. And taking part in some political activism or being part of the party or running for a government position, all are somehow frowned upon or seem to be inappropriate because we are a nation of doctors, dentists, and pharmacists, right? Yes, that's what, certainly in the Iraqi community, perhaps in other communities as well, they look up to these healthcare professionals or lawyers or these kind of areas, which is fine. But I think the diversity is definitely needed. And I remember this beautiful narration that an individual came to our Holy Sixth Imam and said, Yabna Rasulullah, I'm from a particular area and I am one of your Shia. And the Imam said, are you the best in your profession and in your area, in that area? He said, no. He said, then you need to come back again and say you are one of my Shia. In other words, we need to excel in all the different fields. It's not good enough for us to say, you know what, we'll just focus on one theme or one part of the different disciplines. So I think things will change, but at the same time, there needs to be an encouragement for our youngsters and others who have potential, who have talent. Yes, we complain about the media being Islamophobic. We complain about Fox News and CNN and so on and so forth. How many do we have of Muslim voices that we actually trust or speak on behalf of Muslims that come on TV or on the radio or whatever, on social networking, whatever, and have a voice that we can be comfortable about? Yes? And the problem is today we have one or two Muslim journalists who everyone seems to think that they should represent Islam or Shiism in the best way. In reality, they're journalists. So the question here is to start at the foundation, to question the way we interact and bring up our children to think about their role in society. Are we cocooned ourselves to our houses and our centers? Or do we feel that our future existence in this country and in the West is dependent upon our engagement, our participation at all levels, specifically in politics and media?
Thank you. And I think we have a comment, and I'd really like to solicit more comments about the hypothetical. We really want you guys to take something back home with you. Please go ahead.
So I want to agree 100% of what the Sheikh said. And I actually work for CARE Minnesota, the Minnesota chapter, and we were involved in the brainstorming of that chewing gum ad, so it was phenomenal that you brought that up. What I wanted to add is that we see a lot of, not a lot of females in leadership roles, and I think that is a big problem in our society. So I just was wondering, like, why that is so. I know there's a lot of times where, you know, they have the ability to be in leadership roles and are phenomenal speakers and are very intelligent, but they don't have, you know, the confidence to stand in front of millions of people and do this. So is there something that we can do as a group or as a masjid or as a community to help boost that, or something like, I don't know.
Sure. So I'll rephrase the question for some of the panelists here. So I think her question was the lack of female leadership in our community, and I do agree that this is a problem. I definitely do agree. You know, in terms of steps that we can take, I think, you know, we've already heard a lot of discussion up here about initiative. And I know many, many, many very talented, very full of potential young women. And I'll say this, that many very, very intelligent, very talented women wait for the opportunity. They wait for someone to ask them to come and speak. They wait for someone to build the platform for them. And we have to stop. We have to stop that, absolutely. We've already heard experiences of how leadership and how people changed our own prophet took the initiative and acted. And I think we have to take that as an inspiration. We are the daughters of Lady Fatima. We are the daughters of Lady Khadija. Nobody stops us. No, nobody. We're the daughters of Lady Zainab. We make the platform ourselves. So I think that will be my only, that would be my response in that, what steps can we take? Really, this is an issue that I'm speaking to pretty much this half of the room. This is an issue for us to discuss amongst ourselves. We have to build the initiative, we have to build a platform, and we have to create those opportunities. Nobody will create them for us. But thank you for the question.
I think just to echo some of the discussions that we've already had, I think the one thing that's always worked for me and a lot of women that I see that are in leadership positions is that really do excel in whatever you do. And I know it's been mentioned a few times, but when you excel at what you do and when you're the best at what you do, people forget most of the sort of demographic issues that they have problems with, right? They forget how old you are, they forget that you're a woman, they forget that you're Muslim, that you have a hijab on your head, because you bring something to that table that no one else can. You're added value for whatever organization, for whatever institution that is, and no one's gonna pass up on that kind of value. And so that's been my personal experience, and a lot of women that I do hear in leadership circles. We have a leadership circle as part of the Vancouver Board of Trade, and a lot of the women say the same thing, is that we brought something to the table that no one else could. And so really, I think the message for me and for what I want to share is that really excel at whatever it is that you do, and that makes you added value to the organization.
Yeah, couple of things I'm going to say there. First of all, there's a big confusion amongst Muslim women and in Muslim communities as a whole, that because women cannot be leaders in the mosque in the sense of leading prayers, they cannot occupy a position of leadership. Allow me to tell you from personal experience, and I think my colleagues will definitely agree, being a resident alim is the lowest paying profession. So I don't even know why you'd want to do something like that. However, if you're talking about leadership along the lines of whatever it is that you do in life, and you want to be a female role model who leads in that, I'll just tell you a few things. When Imam Ali was oppressed, there was Ali ibn Abi Talib, there was Imam Hassan, and there was Imam Hussein. That's three champions you can't even come close to. But it was Fatima Zahra that spoke. In the Masjid al-Nabawi, it was Fatima Zahra that spoke, and three Imams willingly remained silent. Okay? In Karbala, from 72 distinguished personalities, from Imam Hussein, from Abu Fadl al-Abbas, if it were not for Sayyida Zainab, forget it. Forget Islam, forget the name of Rasulullah. Bani Umayyah would have succeeded if it weren't for Zainab. Now, here's a very important thing. Sayyida Zainab did not wait, and this is a very beautiful point which you raised, and I use this very, very often. Sayyida Zainab did not wait for Imam Hussein to ask her to join his caravan. She went and said, I'm joining your caravan. Right? You have to take that initiative, and you have to believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will. And for all my sisters that are in attendance, and tell those who are not, there's a very, very good point. I've come across it. I really don't recall who said it. Those on Facebook would know I'm terrible at references. But it says, the problem with feminism is this. Women are fighting to have equal rights as their oppressors. Why would you want to be as bad as the person who's oppressing you if you believe that you're being denied? So Islam does not have that feminist mentality of, oh, you oppress me, I got to be just like, no. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you as you. If He wanted you to be a man or be equal as a man, إِنَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ, Allah is capable of making you equal to a man. But He created you for your own purpose, to do things that we cannot do. And Ayatollah Tabatabai, who is the author of Tafsir al-Mizan, whenever he came to any ayah of the Quran that related to women, he actually sought the counsel of women. And when people made mockery of him, they're like, Marja, big guy, you know, tafsir of the Quran, and you're asking women for advice? He said, with all due respect, I don't know about the complications of delivering a baby, so I can theorize it, but I will need someone who actually experiences that. So you can bring so much to the table, take it, run with it, Allah, Muhammad, and Ali with you, and trust me, you'll be very successful, inshallah, in whatever it is that you endeavor to do.
Thank you. And I do agree with everything Brother Hussein said. I will just add one very small clarification about feminism, the word feminism.
Oh, yeah.
I think there are different interpretations of this word. There are many different interpretations, and I think one of them, I think, is exactly that, in which women strive to simply be equal to a man, and I agree. Why would anybody want to be equal to a man? I simply wouldn't want to. But I do strongly believe that Islam inherently is a very feminist religion, and I'll clarify that a little bit, in that feminism, defining it as simply empowering women. Let's leave out all the other strings, all the other interpretations. There is truly no other revolution that in the history of the world for women that has happened like the advent of Islam. I mean, point blank. So just a clarification on the word feminism, no other points.